The battlefield was silent after the last explosion faded into the blackness of space. Wreckage floated like broken bones of great ships, glowing faintly as fire still licked their remains. Among the ruins, one small pod drifted aimlessly, its signal weak but still alive. Inside sat Daniel, a young human soldier who had once believed he would never see alien stars this close. His mission had gone wrong. The fleet had been destroyed, and now he was alone, waiting for either rescue or capture. Capture came first. A massive shadow passed over the pod. Daniel's heart pounded as a dark ship loomed near, bigger than anything he had seen before. Its hull was covered in scars, jagged plates of metal like the scales of some great beast. Markings painted in crimson symbols screamed of war and blood. He knew the stories. These were the space orcs, feared across the galaxy for their strength and savagery. The pod shook violently as claws from the alien vessel seized it. In minutes, Daniel was dragged into their ship. When the hatch opened, the first thing he saw were towering figures, green-skinned warriors with tusks, broad shoulders, and eyes glowing like embers. Their armor was thick and decorated with bones of past enemies. They looked down at him as if deciding whether he was prey or prize. One stepped forward, his voice a deep growl. A human, weak flesh among stars. What shall we do with it? Daniel stayed silent, his throat dry. He knew any wrong word could mean death. Bring it to the queen, another orc said. She will decide. The warriors dragged him through the ship's halls, which were dimly lit with fire-like lanterns. The air smelled of iron and smoke. Everywhere, orcs shouted, trained, or fought each other in brutal sparring. Daniel realized this was not a place for the weak. Yet even as fear weighed on his chest, something inside him refused to bow. Finally, they entered a grand hall. At its center sat a throne made of black stone and jagged steel. Upon it rested a figure taller than all the rest. The Orc Queen, Queen Shiraka, was a sight both terrifying and powerful. Her armor shone with dark metal, her tusks curved and polished, and a scar traced across one side of her face like lightning frozen in flesh. But it was her eyes that caught Daniel, golden and sharp, filled with authority. The hall went quiet as she rose. The guards threw Daniel forward. He stumbled but stood straight, meeting her gaze. Every instinct told him to kneel, but he stayed upright, though his body trembled. This is the human you captured? Shiraka's voice rolled like thunder. Yes, my queen, the guard answered, the last survivor of the battle. The queen circled Daniel, studying him as though he were an unusual beast. So small, she murmured. So fragile. Yet you stand, Daniel swallowed hard. He wanted to answer, but fear held his tongue. Shiraka's lips curled in a faint smirk. Most humans beg. Why do you not kneel before me? Finally, Daniel found his voice. Because I have nothing left to lose. His words were quiet, but in the silence of the hall they echoed. The orc nobles laughed, some growling in amusement. The human has spirit, one said mockingly, but Shiraka's gaze deepened. Spirit, she repeated, as though the word was a blade in her hand. She returned to her throne, eyes never leaving Daniel. You will not be executed. Not yet, you will stay as my guest. Let us see how long your spirit lasts among us. The guards dragged him away again, this time not to a cell, but to a chamber with rough walls and a bed made of furs. It was better than he expected. Alone, Daniel sat down, his heart racing. He had survived the first meeting, but what next? He was a human among monsters. Days passed, and Daniel learned more about his captors. Orcs lived for war, their culture built on strength and honor. They respected victories and despised weakness. Yet he noticed things others might have missed. They cared for their wounded. They trained their young with discipline. They even sang songs of ancestors during their feasts. They were brutal, yes, but not without heart. Daniel also began to catch the queen's attention more than once. Whenever he was brought to watch ceremonies or trials, she observed him closely. He spoke little, but he helped where he could. Once by tending to a wounded child who had fallen during training. His knowledge of medicine surprised them, for orcs treated injuries with fire and scars. Word spread. Some orcs mocked him, but others began to watch curiously. He was not strong like them, but he endured. One night, Daniel was called to the great hall again. Shiraka sat upon her throne, feasting with her warriors. When he entered, silence fell once more. The queen leaned forward. Human, tell me, what is strength to your kind? Daniel hesitated, then spoke clearly. Strength is not just fighting. It is protecting. It is standing when all else falls. It is choosing mercy when others choose cruelty. A murmur passed through the hall. Some laughed at his words, others sneered. But Shiraka did not laugh. Instead, she studied him with the same piercing gaze as before. "Interesting," she said at last. "Perhaps you are not as weak as you look." That night, Daniel lay awake on the furs, staring at the rough ceiling. He wondered what fate awaited him. He thought of Earth, of the stars, and of the queen whose golden eyes lingered in his mind. For the first time, fear was not the only feeling in his chest. Something else stirred, something he could not yet name. The next days were strange for Daniel. He was no longer treated like a prisoner, but neither was he free. Orc guards always followed him, their heavy footsteps echoing through the metal halls. Sometimes they laughed at him, calling him fragile bones, but they never struck him. It seemed the Queen's command had given him protection, though it also drew attention he was not sure he wanted. Daniel spent his hours observing the Orcs. Their lives were built around combat and honor. He watched them spar in training grounds, blades striking with the sound of thunder. Young Orcs shouted war songs as they practiced, their voices full of pride. Even children were raised to fight. But he noticed that older warriors guided them carefully, correcting their stances, praising their effort. For all their harshness, there was care hidden within. When Daniel helped an injured youngling again, this time with a broken arm, the story spread quickly. He tied the limb with cloth, making a sling, and explained how rest could heal faster than battle. At first, the Orc mothers doubted him, but when they saw the child smile and move without pain, their suspicious eyes softened. Some even bowed their heads slightly when they passed him later. Still, the Queen remained the most curious about him. Shiraka often summoned Daniel to her hall, not for punishment, but for conversation. At first, she asked questions about humans, how they fought, how they built ships, how they ruled. Daniel answered honestly, speaking of Earth and its wars, its cities, and its fragile peace. She listened carefully, her golden eyes fixed on him as if searching for hidden truths. One evening, she dismissed her court early and kept Daniel behind. The hall was quiet, lit only by the glow of burning braziers. She leaned forward on her throne, her massive form casting a shadow over him. "Human," she said slowly. "You confuse me." Daniel blinked. "Confuse you, my queen?" "Yes." Her tusks gleamed in the firelight. "You are small, weak compared to us. You have no tusks, no heavy bones, no warrior's blood. Yet you do not tremble before me. Even now your eyes do not drop. Why?" Daniel thought carefully before answering. "Fear doesn't make me stronger. If I must face death, I would rather face it standing." Shiraka tilted her head, studying him. For a long moment, silence filled the hall, broken only by the crackling of fire. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed, not a cruel laugh, but one of genuine amusement. The sound rolled like thunder. "You speak as if you are one of us," she said, "but your strength is different. Not in body, but in spirit." Daniel lowered his gaze, but not out of shame. "Perhaps. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we never stop trying." Her eyes narrowed with interest. "Never stop trying," she repeated, as though testing the weight of those words. From that night, Shiraka began to appear more often wherever Daniel was present. When he walked through the training fields, she sometimes stood in the shadows, watching silently. During meals, she would call him to sit closer, asking him about human foods, human songs, human ways of love and family. At first, the other Orcs muttered with unease. It was unheard of for their queen to give attention to an outsider, much less a human. Some nobles whispered that she was being softened, that she risked her throne by entertaining weakness. But Shiraka ignored their words. She had always ruled with her own will, not theirs. One night during a great feast, the queen placed Daniel at her side. The tables were filled with roasted beasts, heavy mugs of dark drink, and the sound of war drums. Warriors slammed fists against the table, singing of battles past. Daniel felt out of place, but he tried to keep his composure. Shiraka suddenly asked him before the whole court, "Tell us, human, what is the greatest victory of your people?" The hall went silent. All eyes turned to Daniel. His heart raced, but he answered with care. "The greatest victory," he said slowly, "is not when we destroy, but when we endure. When we lose everything and still rise again, that is when humans are strongest." For a moment, the hall was filled with murmurs. Some Orcs scoffed. "Endurance is not victory," one sneered. "Victory is crushing your enemy." But Shiraka raised her hand, silencing them. Her gaze never left Daniel. "Endurance," she repeated. Perhaps that too is a kind of strength. Daniel sat down again, feeling The following days in the Orc Empire grew tense. Daniel noticed that whenever he walked through the great halls or the training grounds, more eyes followed him. Some orcs looked at him with curiosity, others with open dislike. His words during the feast had reached every ear, and whispers now spread like fire. The queen speaks too often with the human. He sits at her side during feasts. Does she see strength in a creature so small? The nobles did not speak openly against Sharika, but Daniel could feel the storm building. He was careful in what he said, but no matter how cautious he tried to be, the attention grew heavier. One evening, Sharika summoned him again. This time she did not sit upon her throne. Instead, she stood near the fire pit at the center of the hall, her golden eyes reflecting the flames. She looked restless, as if thoughts battled within her. "You spoke words the other night," she said, her voice lower than usual. Daniel's heart skipped. Did she hear? Could she have caught his foolish whisper? He kept his face calm. "I speak often, my queen." "Which words trouble you?" Her gaze narrowed slightly, but she said nothing of the whisper. Instead, she asked, "Why do you think your people endure? You are weak in flesh, yet you survive battles you should lose." Daniel stepped closer to the fire. The heat touched his face, but he welcomed it. "Because we fight for more than ourselves. We fight for families, for children, for futures we may never see. That gives us strength even when our bodies fail." Sharika stared at him for a long moment, then turned away. Strange words. "Among my people, strength is shown by blade and blood, yet you make me wonder if there is more." She left him with that, but Daniel could see something shifting in her. Her curiosity was no longer just about humans. It was about him. The Orc court, however, was not blind. Rival warlords began gathering in shadows, whispering of weakness. To them, a queen should be untouchable, a figure of raw strength. Yet here she was, speaking often with a fragile human. Some claimed she was dishonoring their ancestors. One bold noble, a scarred warrior named Kragan, finally spoke aloud in the council. "My queen, the human weakens you. He whispers soft words that make you forget who we are. Orcs do not endure, we conquer. Cast him out before your throne is stained by shame." The hall grew silent. Warriors looked at Sharika, waiting for her fury. Daniel stood at the side, feeling the heavy weight of their glares. Sharika rose slowly from her throne, her presence filling the hall like thunder. She stepped down toward Kragan, who stood tall but clenched his fists. "You speak of shame," she said coldly. "Yet you dare to question your queen in open council. That is shame." Kragan snarled but bowed his head, not willing to challenge her strength directly. Still, Daniel could see the fire in his eyes. This would not end here. After the council, Sharika turned to Daniel. "You must be careful. They see you as a threat, even though you are no warrior." Daniel met her gaze. "I never wish to threaten your rule. I only wish to live." Her golden eyes softened for a brief second, then hardened again. "Live carefully, human. Orc blades are quicker than orc words." One night, a grand feast was held again, this time to honor a victory won by Sharika's warriors in a nearby system. The hall was filled with noise, laughter, and the pounding of drums. Daniel sat once more near the queen, though he felt every eye burning into his back. Sharika raised a massive mug and toasted her warriors. Then she turned, surprising everyone. "Tonight I asked the human to speak. Tell us of your people's victories." Daniel froze. He had not expected this. But Sharika's steady gaze gave him no choice. Slowly he rose to his feet. "We humans have fought many wars," he began, his voice quiet but steady. "But our greatest victories are not always the ones sung by soldiers. They are the victories of survival, of rebuilding after destruction, of choosing to keep going when everything tells us to stop." The hall was restless. Some orcs scoffed, others leaned forward curiously. Daniel continued. "You may see me as weak, and perhaps I am compared to you. But weakness does not mean hopelessness. Even a fragile being can stand tall if his heart refuses to fall." The words hung in the air. For a moment no one moved. Then laughter erupted from some warriors, sharp and mocking. "Fragile bones speak of hearts," one roared. "Let him hold a blade if he dares to stand tall," another shouted. But Sharika silenced them with a single raised hand. Her eyes stayed fixed on Daniel. "You speak with courage, human," she said slowly. "And courage is strength." The hall fell silent again. Her words carried weight, and none dared to openly challenge her. but Daniel could feel the tension rising like a storm yet to break. That night, as he walked alone back to his chamber, his mind was heavy. He whispered to himself again, his voice soft and filled with longing. If only I could marry her. He shook his head at the foolish dream. He was just a human soldier, a survivor of a lost battle. She was the queen of a warrior empire. Their worlds could never join. What he did not know was that Shiraka stood in the shadows once more, watching him. This time she did not just hear his words. She felt them. Something stirred inside her, something she had long buried. For years she had been the Iron Queen, showing no weakness, ruling only with strength. But the human's words, his courage, and his strange softness made her wonder. Could a bond between them truly exist? Could a human stand beside her not as a servant but as something more? Her hand tightened on the hilt of her sword as she whispered to herself, unheard by anyone else. Perhaps the Orc Empire was never quiet. Its halls always echoed with the clash of weapons, the roars of warriors, and the chanting of ancient songs. But in the weeks after Daniel's words at the feast, the sound changed. It was no longer only the sound of strength. It carried whispers, sharp and dangerous. The human weakens the queen. She listens to him too much. Her crown is slipping. Daniel noticed the stares had grown harsher. Some orcs who once looked at him with curiosity now looked with open hatred. A few spat at the ground when he passed, but still he walked tall even if fear tugged at his chest. Shiraka also felt the shift. In her council meetings, more voices questioned her choices. Rival warlords spoke louder, their challenges sharper. They wanted proof that their queen had not lost her edge. For orcs, even the smallest sign of weakness could invite rebellion. Finally, the storm broke. During a grand council, Warlord Kragan, the same scarred noble who had spoken against Daniel before, stood in the center of the hall. His voice was like a growl of thunder. "My queen, enough of this game," he said. "You sit with the human, you let him speak in our feasts, you call him to your side. He has no tusks, no strength, no blood of our kind. If you truly wish to keep your crown, cast him away, or fight us all to keep him." The words shook the hall. Warriors shouted, some in support of Kragan, others in defense of Shiraka. The noise grew until the air was thick with tension. Daniel stood quietly at the edge, his heart pounding. He knew his presence was the reason for this storm, yet he could not vanish. Shiraka rose from her throne. She towered over everyone, her golden eyes blazing. "You dare question me in open council?" Kragan snarled but did not back down. "I dare because our people see what I see." A queen distracted. A queen softened. "Orcs follow strength, Shiraka. Show us you still have it. Choose your empire or choose the human." The hall went silent. Daniel felt every gaze shift to him. His throat tightened, but he stepped forward before Shiraka could speak. He knew this was dangerous, but he could not let her fight his battles. "I never asked to be here," Daniel said, his voice steady though his body trembled. "I did not come to weaken your queen. I owe her my life. If she wishes me gone, I will go. But do not mistake kindness for weakness. Your queen has not changed. She is still the strongest leader I have ever seen." Murmurs rippled through the court. Some scoffed, others were silent, caught by the courage of the human standing unarmed before them. Shiraka's eyes fixed on Daniel. For a moment she looked at him as if measuring something deep inside. Then slowly she stepped forward, her heavy boots echoing on the stone floor. "You speak of leaving," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "But tell me, Daniel, if I gave you the choice, would you truly go, or would you stay at my side?" Daniel's breath caught. He felt the weight of the hall pressing down on him, every eye watching. He wanted to speak carefully, but his heart spoke first. "I would stay," he said softly. "Not because I am strong, not because I deserve it, but because I believe in you." The hall gasped. Orc warriors muttered in disbelief. Some laughed nervously, but Shiraka did not laugh. She stepped closer until she stood before him, towering like a mountain. Her golden eyes locked on his, sharp and unyielding. "You once whispered words when you thought no one heard," she said. "You wish to marry me?" Daniel froze. His heart stopped. He had spoken those words only in private, believing them to be foolish dreams. Heat rose in his face as the hall exploded with shouts and laughter. "A human marry our queen? Blasphemy! Let him be crushed!" But Shiraka silenced them all with a roar that shook the hall. She raised her hand and pointed at Daniel. "You ask if I am weak. You ask if I have lost my strength.
Hear me now!
Her voice thundered like a storm. This human speaks not with tusks, but with courage. He stands before blades with only words, and still he does not fall. That is strength! And if he would stand with me, then I accept. The hall went silent again. The night sky above the alien city was alive with lights. Huge lanterns floated in the air, glowing softly, while banners stretched across tall stone towers. Music echoed from every street, made of deep drums and strange flutes that hummed in tones a human ear rarely heard. Daniel stood on a wide balcony with Queen Thalara beside him. From there he could see the great courtyard where thousands of her people had gathered. They were chanting, cheering, and clapping their armored hands together. The sound was powerful, like the roar of a mountain. This is for you, Thalara said softly, her deep golden eyes watching the crowd. They never cheered for an outsider before. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He was just a human soldier from a faraway colony. Now he stood at the side of a queen, with her entire empire honoring him. It almost felt unreal. I don't know if I deserve this, he whispered. Thalara turned to him, her heavy crown shining in the lantern light. You faced death for me. You fought with courage against enemies twice your size, and you spoke words that no other dared speak. Daniel looked at her, confused. Which words? Her gaze softened. When you said, if only I could marry her. That was not just courage. That was truth from your heart. No warrior in my empire would admit such feelings so openly. But you did, Daniel swallowed. His ears burned. He remembered the moment, how he had whispered it without thinking. He never thought she would hear. But now it had changed everything. Below them, the people continued to chant. Some shouted his name. Others shouted hers. But many were calling something together, a single phrase, bond of blood, bond of stars. Thalara explained, that is an old vow. It means a union between two worlds. My people see you as part of that now. Daniel tried to smile, but his mind was racing. Are you saying they want us to— Yes, Thalara interrupted gently. They want us to be joined. The thought made him dizzy. He had admired her strength, her honor, her strange beauty. But marriage? Could a human and an alien queen truly be together? Before he could answer, a horn echoed across the courtyard. A group of armored guards marched in, carrying the crest of the Space Orc clans. At their front was General Kor, the same warrior Daniel had faced in battle days ago. The crowd grew quiet. General Kor stepped forward, his tusks catching the firelight. He dropped his spear and knelt before the queen. His voice was loud and firm. I fought this human. I thought him weak, but he struck me down with nothing but broken steel and courage. For that I honor him, and for that I honor you, my queen, in your choice. The crowd erupted again, cheering louder than before. Daniel blinked in shock. The same general who once wanted to crush him was now bowing in respect. Thalara leaned closer and whispered, Do you see now? You have changed even the strongest hearts. Daniel stared at the cheering people, at the warriors pounding their fists on their chests, and at Thalara's steady golden gaze. He realized he was no longer just a visitor. He was part of something greater. Still, doubt lingered in him. He turned to her. But Thalara, I'm human. I don't belong here. My people might never understand if we— She raised a hand, her long claws gleaming, but her touch was gentle as it rested on his shoulder. Listen to me, Daniel. You belong where your heart leads you. The stars do not ask permission to shine. Why should we? Her words struck deep. He opened his mouth, but no reply came. Just then, one of her advisors, a thin alien with silver tattoos across his skin, stepped forward. Your Majesty, the Council requests an answer. Will the bond be sealed tonight? All eyes turned to Thalara. The drum slowed, beating like a giant heart. Thalara did not hesitate. She lifted her chin proudly. Yes, she declared. The bond will be sealed. The courtyard exploded with cheers so loud that even the towers shook. Daniel froze. His voice came out shaky. Wait, you mean tonight? She smiled at him, and for a moment her fierce warrior's mask softened into something tender. Yes, tonight. Unless you say no. The world seemed to stop around him. His heart pounded. He remembered all the moments they had shared. The battle where he shielded her. The quiet talks under the alien moon. The way she had trusted him when even her generals doubted. Did he dare say yes? Could he truly bind himself to her world forever? Before he could answer, a new voice rang out from the shadows. No. The word was sharp, cutting through the cheers. A cloaked figure stepped into the light, pulling back the hood to reveal a scarred alien with burning red eyes. His armor was marked with the sigil of a rival clan. "It cannot be allowed," the stranger growled. "A human cannot sit at the queen's side." "It dishonors the throne," the crowd hissed in anger. Some shouted at the intruder. Guards moved forward, but the stranger raised a hand and sparks of strange energy crackled from his palm. Daniel's eyes widened. "He has tech." Thalara's voice was cold as steel. "Who are you to challenge my will?" The stranger's red eyes glowed. "I am the last son of the broken clan you destroyed. And I will not see our empire fall to weakness," the crowd gasped. Whispers spread like fire. Daniel stepped forward before he could think. His voice was steady. "If you have a problem, then face me." The scarred alien laughed, low and cruel. "You, a human?" He spat on the ground. "Then let it be so. If you win, the bond is sealed. If you fall, the queen is mine." The drums stopped. Silence fell. Thalara's eyes flared with rage, but Daniel placed a hand on her arm. "Let me," he whispered. "If I run from this, your people will never accept me. I have to prove myself." She stared at him, torn between fury and fear. Then slowly she nodded. "Very well. But know this, Daniel. If you fall, I fall with you." The courtyard lit with torches as a circle was cleared for combat. The crowd pressed close, thousands of eyes watching. The scarred alien raised his weapon, a blade glowing with energy. Daniel picked up only a simple spear offered by a guard. For a moment he felt small, weak, outmatched. But then he looked at Thalara, standing tall with fire in her eyes, and strength surged in his chest. He tightened his grip on the spear. His voice was steady, filled with quiet resolve. "Then let's see who truly belongs." And with that, the fight began. The torches flickered around the courtyard, throwing long shadows across the stone floor. Thousands of eyes watched in silence as Daniel faced the scarred alien warrior. The crowd's whispers carried through the air like the sound of a restless sea. The rival warrior's weapon hummed with blue energy, its edge sparking dangerously. His red eyes glowed with hate. Daniel, by contrast, held only a simple spear. The shaft was cracked near the middle and the blade was chipped. He had no armor, no shield, only his human will. Queen Thalara stood at the edge of the circle, her golden eyes blazing. Though she wanted to step in, she knew this battle was not hers to fight. If she interfered, her people would think she doubted the human. So she clenched her fists and whispered under her breath, "Stay strong, Daniel." The scarred alien circled Daniel slowly, his voice low and mocking. "You don't belong here, human. You are fragile, weak. My people will never accept you." Daniel tightened his grip on the spear. "Maybe I am weaker than you. But strength isn't only muscle. It's courage. It's fighting for someone you care about." The alien snarled and lunged. His blade cut the air with a hiss, forcing Daniel to dive aside. Sparks flew as the energy weapon scraped against the stone floor. Daniel rolled to his feet, gasping, but he kept his focus. The crowd shouted, their voices clashing, some cheering for Daniel, others for the challenger. The tension grew heavier with every heartbeat. The scarred alien struck again, faster this time. Daniel raised his spear to block, but the weapon's energy burned through the wood, slicing the tip clean off. The broken spear spun away. Daniel now stood weaponless. Gasps erupted from the audience. Even Thalara's heart lurched. The alien sneered. "See? Weak, hopeless. Even your weapon abandons you." But Daniel didn't move back. He clenched the remaining half of the spear in his hands. "I don't need a perfect weapon. I just need to hold on." The rival warrior roared and swung his glowing blade again. Daniel ducked low, thrusting the broken shaft forward with all his strength. The jagged wood stabbed into the alien's armored leg, slipping between the plates. The warrior howled in pain, stumbling. The crowd erupted in shouts. Daniel didn't hesitate. He tackled the larger alien, slamming his shoulder into the warrior's chest. They both crashed to the ground. The glowing blade clattered across the stones, skidding out of reach. The rival warrior roared, shoving Daniel off with raw strength. He scrambled toward his weapon, but Daniel threw himself forward again, slamming the broken spear across the alien's throat, pinning him down. For a moment, they struggled fiercely. The alien's muscles bulged, his claws scraping at the ground. Daniel's arms shook with effort, his lungs burning. He knew he couldn't hold forever. The warrior hissed, "You can't win, human." "You are nothing." Daniel's voice was raw but steady. "I'm not nothing. I'm the one who chose to stand when everyone else would have fallen." With a final cry, Daniel pressed down, slamming the alien's head against the stone floor. The rival warrior went still, stunned and defeated. The courtyard erupted in cheers, louder than ever before. Drums pounded. Banners shook in the wind. The people roared Daniel's name. Daniel staggered back, chest heaving. His arms trembled, but his eyes were fixed on Queen Thalara. She rushed forward, her crown glimmering in the firelight. Without hesitation, she lifted his hand high for all to see.